Today we're checking out a bakery kicking out confectionery creations, all of it from scratch, right here downtown in North Attleborough. I'm Jared Ware. Let's go check out tonight's special. If you've got a sweet tooth, we've got the perfect spot for you. Popping out decadent desserts and homemade bread, Oven Essence is bringing fresh flavor to the bakery scene in North Attleborough. Owned and operated by Laura Scott, this upstart is cranking out a mean cup of joe to go along with your indulgent breakfast. So set your timers, sit back and watch the dough rise as we check out Oven Essence Bakery. We're here inside the cafe at Oven Essence with the owner-operator Laura Scott. Laura, I want to get right into baking. It seems to be something that gets handed down from generation to generation. I hear a lot of stories where you learn to bake from your mother, your grandmother, your dad, whatever it is. How did you first get into baking?
I took up baking. I was a young teenager. However, nobody in my family really taught me how to bake. I was definitely more self-taught. The only baker in my family would have been my grandmother, Rosemary. She made the best stuff, and so when we would have like these big family get-togethers and we had a large family getting together for Christmas or something, she would spend weeks just baking and freezing and all of this stuff, and my favorite recipes came from her. But I didn't live near her, so she didn't teach me anything. She passed away a few years ago, and I do have some of her recipe catalogs, so several of the recipes here I actually got from my grandmother. Once I realized I enjoyed it, one of my high school electives was foods and nutrition, so that I could learn more in that class. Taught me a little bit more, but from there I would say that I loved people's reactions. I found that I loved to make people happy with food. And so I would work for weeks on creating recipes. I would be tweaking recipes and all kinds of stuff. And I always had people taste testing. I called myself a compulsive overfeeder. I was so busy making it, I didn't have time to eat it. But I loved everybody's feedback, and it was just a hobby. It was a hobby. I spent some years doing like private catering and things on the side, and everybody kept saying, oh, you should open up your own little place. And kind of got around to doing that a little bit later, but yeah, it's been good.
Now you mentioned you were self-taught. How did you sort of train yourself? Was it trial and error? Were you just
Oh, it was a lot of trial and error. Yeah, people could tell you stories of some of the errors that we had, but yeah, it was just, you have to love baking, and I wanted to be good at it, and like I said, I compiled recipes, and I would take time to just experiment with different recipes until people told me, okay, you've got this one, this is just right. And then I would put it in what I called my vault, which was kind of like a hidden little recipe box so nobody else could get my recipes. Because I always said, someday, if I open up a little place, I can't have my recipes floating around all over the place. It's got to be unique. And so that's kind of what I spent a number of years doing.
So how did you find this area in North Attleborough? How did you decide that this was going to be the spot that you wanted to take the dive and open up in?
I mean, we frequently drove around this area. It was probably the mall that attracted us at first. But then one day it was just seeing these little vacant storefronts, and we just found that there was nothing in the area quite like what I had in mind. Driving around wanting to see if there was any real competition for the type of place that I wanted to open up, and it just seemed like there was nothing nearby. And as we started communicating more with the locals, they were saying, yeah, there's no real bakeries close by, and there's nowhere to get a really, really good cup of coffee. And so we put a lot of time and research into making sure we had the best high quality ingredients for our products. We made sure that we brought in really high quality coffee equipment and coffee. It's all organic, it comes from New Harvest. They're local, and so they roast it, we grind it here, and that was our focus. But we love this area. North Attleborough has been great. We love the whole downtown. We would love to get more involved.
You mentioned you got some recipes from your grandmother. You mentioned that you experimented a lot. You put recipes into your vault. What was the first recipe that you mastered and said, this is the first one going into the vault? I want to hold on to this.
I know it. The very first one. I was 15 years old, and it was sugar cookies. I created like a sugar cookie dough, and I think the real secret for me was just a lot of extra salt and vanilla. But they just came out tasting amazing, and they were thick and they were soft, and I would ice them with like buttercream frosting, and I would take such care in the decorating of each one. I can't really do that now, obviously, but at the time, I mean, they just came out almost too pretty to eat. But they tasted amazing, and everybody for a couple of years there was always like, oh, is Laura, she's gonna bring her sugar cookies? Is she making her sugar cookies? So that was definitely the very first one, and it was the first recipe that I felt like I owned, and everybody asked about it, and everybody loved it. And that's what I think started, honestly, was that recipe that started to trigger my love for baking, just because I love to make stuff, but I also loved the reactions of people when I really mastered something.
So when did you decide to make the leap from just kind of working those catering spots and saying, you know what, I'm finally going to take the leap, I'm going to go ahead and do this?
It was a couple of things. It was an incredible support system of very good friends and some family members, and it was going through some personal upheaval in my own life where it was like, okay, it's now or never. I've got to find a way to make it, I've got to make this work. Certain doors just were all opening, and it was like, if I don't do it now, it's not going to happen, and I need to do it now, and hope that this can really take off. And so it was kind of a flying leap of faith at that point, and it's paying off. It's going really well. But I would say word of mouth has been our #1 advertisement. I definitely get far more people coming in here saying, oh, we heard all about you from this family member or this friend or whatever, and that brought them in here. And so you have to be able to deliver. I mean, it's one thing to open up a place and everybody wants to try a new place, and I always said my whole philosophy behind this was anyone can make a cupcake look pretty. Anybody can make a pretty dessert. If you can't follow through with the flavor and the quality, people aren't going to come back. So we definitely, like I said, we definitely put a lot of effort. We wanted to make sure we had top premium ingredients. We wanted to follow through with that flavor and that quality that you aren't just going to be able to go out and get somewhere else. So that seems to be our niche right now. And doing bread. We added that in kind of last minute. We took a lot of feedback from people that we were talking to locally who said, we have to go all the way to Providence just to go get good bread. So I said, all right, well then we got to do bread. So we do every day, a couple times a day. We put out fresh Italian loaves, and we do French baguettes and really good focaccia. We do challah bread now, Thursdays through Saturdays, and so it's going really well.
It's a pretty nice segue because you're talking flavors and whatnot. Obviously the food is going to be king here. It's going to help you sink or swim. How did you create the menu when you first opened? What did you decide, this is what I'm going to offer?
It's really cool. I had some things in my mind already, like I said. I had certain recipes that I had already spent so many years developing that I already knew, okay, we've got to have this, we've got to have that. And then I remember I was sitting here and I thought, okay, what kind of place are we trying to create here? We want like the old school bakery feel, because you don't have a lot of that anymore. We want to bring people kind of back to a simpler time. And I remember I put this post out on Facebook, and I just said, okay, what do you remember about the old school bakeries in your town where you grew up? What did you go to a bakery for? What's the thing that brings you back? And people just kind of went crazy responding with, oh, I remember these, and so I started picking from there. And if somebody, that's where we got a lot of ideas for some of the products we do have here. It was because local people were saying, I miss this. This brings me back to my childhood. And so I said, okay, if somebody wanted whoopie pie, I said, all right, guys, we've got to master the best whoopie pie. Somebody wanted an orange cranberry scone, all right, we're bringing in orange cranberry scones. Let's make sure we have the best. And we did it that way. So that's kind of a cool way that we put it all together.
And you mentioned, and I can only assume, the daily preparation, getting all this ready. What is that like each and every day?
At this point, we do have a good routine down. I'd say I get in here sometimes really early, depending on the day. Other times it may be more like mid-morning. I usually get started right away on the different types of dough that need to rise for a while. So I might get like all the bread dough rising for the day. We always like to do our cinnamon rolls. As much as possible, we want them to come hot and fresh right out of the oven in the morning. Yeah, we're gonna get to those. But those types of things, the breakfast things. Early in the morning, we want to make sure our breakfast cabinet is fully stocked and we have our bread for the day rising. That's kind of my #1 goal first thing. And then we kind of get on to shaping the loaves and getting those into the oven. The smell of bread and coffee when you walk in here then is amazing. And we'll assess where we're at with desserts and if anything like that needs to be done for the day. And it's a lot smoother right now than it was when we first opened. It's extensive. It's crazy. And I tell my people here, I'm like, all right, this is literally like, I feel like I'm the race car driver tearing through the place like a tornado, and then they're this like pit crew scrambling to clean up after me. But that's what does it. That's what gets the stuff out there. I go in there and I'm like a whirlwind, but I've been doing this for a long time. I know that the speed at which I work and the amount that I can produce in a very small amount of time is kind of unique. All I really need is people that follow me around cleaning up my messes. And they've been awesome about that. They really have been. So that's what keeps it going.
You mentioned earlier, I think when you were talking about the sugar cookies, how you used to really take time to design and the creativity and artistry that goes into baking. If anyone watches those Food Network shows, there's so many shows that they spend more time talking about the design of these baked goods rather than actually cooking them. How much of it is, the artistic, creative end of it, and do you feel like you get to express yourself through baking?
I do. Maybe not as much as I would like to, because you have to be practical. I mean, I could have spent 5 to 10 minutes decorating a cookie when I was younger, but I had the time to do that, I mean, like I said, they were too pretty to eat. Now it's more like grab a piping bag, get some icing on it, throw some sprinkles on it, and put it out, You have to know where to, but I definitely want to make sure, again, I don't compromise on the ingredients. I don't compromise on, the product itself. That has to stay right where it is. And then as far as the decorating and stuff goes, we assess how much time we have to really put into the appearance. Appearance is important, but there's a balance. Like I said, if something doesn't taste good, if you can't back up the appearance of the product, people aren't going to come back. So our goal is to get people to come back.
And I want to finish up, you mentioned that you've grown out staff-wise. You also have an internship program. What's that all about?
That's been great. We developed a partnership with the Davies Institute. They're affiliated with CCRI, and so we've taken we've had a couple high school students come in from their baking and pastry program. So these kids, for the most part, are already trained. I don't have a whole lot of training there that I have to do, and this is what they want to do. They love it. It shows them that there is actually a career opportunity in baking. So to be able to have someone come in that I don't have to go above and beyond trying to train them has been great. I have someone in particular, she comes in a few times a week. She helps me stock the case quickly on the weekends. She's great at decorating. So yeah, that's a really good partnership to have. When these kids graduate, we have the option of hiring them on as bakers, or if they move on to other things, then the school's right there prepared to send us, other students, and then they get their work-based hours that they need as well. So it helps us, it helps them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, today I'm going to be playing your intern, and I'm going to need a crash course in baking because I am not skilled whatsoever in the field. So we're going to go into the kitchen in a few moments or after the break. What are we going to be working on?
We're going to be doing our cinnamon rolls.
So hopefully there's no pressure to sell the ones that I make, because they might not be that. They might not live up to the standards that you're pumping out here of an FT, but I will try my hardest. So after the break, we're in the kitchen making cinnamon rolls here on tonight's special. What do North Attleborough residents think of international, national, state, and town issues? Join Peter Gay for Up for Discussion, featuring members of local media, town officials, and people like you. Based on HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher and Hannity on the Fox News Network, Up for Discussion tackles the topics making headlines. Up for Discussion every month on North TV's community and government channels, Comcast channels 15 and 98, and Verizon channels 23 and 24. So we teased it before the break. We're back in the kitchen. We're going to be making some cinnamon rolls, or we're going to try to. Laura, let's get this started. Let's take me through the
got this all set up.
Here.
All right, so the first thing we do is we take our active dry yeast, and you're going to measure out 4.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast. So when we are done putting our yeast in here, we're going to add our lukewarm water.
Okay.
Did you get your half teaspoon?
Nope. See, these are the things. This is why you're here, and this is why I was telling you off air the last time I baked. I made a banana bread that didn't rise.
Oh, and now you can add your sugar, which is half a cup of sugar. We do half a cup of butter. This is soft enough that you'll be able to break it up with the gloves. The next thing we're going to be doing is the 2 eggs. What I tell people, if you're not experienced in cracking eggs, we crack them in a bowl first to make sure we have no shells, and then we pour the cracked eggs in.
Get it off the
There you
side.
go.
Now, how many cinnamon rolls do you do a day or a week? How often?
It depends on the day, obviously. Weekends we'll do, this is one batch, which is a dozen, but on Saturdays sometimes we'll go through a good 4 dozen. And I think that seems to actually be picking up the more people find out about them, so.
And these are perfect. There's a rack behind us. They look like a perfect size to just come in here in the morning
Exactly.
and grab a cup of coffee and a cinnamon roll.
Exactly, yep.
Be on your way, especially in the summer.
Yep. It's looking good. That's about all I would do, and then I would work to just get as much off your hands there as you can.
So we've got the mixing part done. What would be the next step on this bowl?
This dough, at this point, would go into the refrigerator, and it needs to rise for at least 8 hours.
Okay. So through the magic of television, we've got that 8 hours.
We've got that
ready
8
to go.
hours. We're good. It's been rising for 8 hours.
All right, so our dough has risen over that 8 hours. It's been in the fridge. Now it's time to knead this stuff out, roll it out. What's the first step here?
The first thing you want to do, because you want to make sure when you go to roll that dough that it's not all sticking to your surface. So you're going to take a good handful of that flour and you're just going to spread it all over the counter.
Okay. More
Probably
or less?
more. I'd cover this whole open area right there. Yep. Yep, there you go. A little more in here.
All right, so we've got our dough. We're floured out. What's next?
You're going to be rolling this out pretty much to the measurements of this floured surface here.
Okay.
So what I usually do is I try to get it kind of even so you don't have too much dough in one side, and I'll get it into like I'll start with like an even square. And then you want to generously coat this in flour as well, and you're just going to start rolling it out.
Almost grabbed the powdered sugar there.
Yep, there's your flour.
That wouldn't have been good. All right, more flour, or is that good?
No, that's it. You're good. Just start rolling.
All right, we just roll this thing out.
Just start rolling it out.
Any technique
I
here?
find, and this is where you want to watch for the dough sticking. If it starts to stick, just keep adding flour. You've got your whole bowl of flour there, just keep adding it.
All right, we're going to keep going.
So yeah, we're going to go ahead and
just flour right underneath there?
more under, pour some flour on the dough, flour your pin. There you go.
See, this is where being a veteran in the kitchen pays off.
Then at this point, I would take the whole slab of dough and I would rotate it.
Okay, it's
there
a
you go.
heavy slab.
You got it. Yep. And then just
now
keep
we're
going in that,
we're
and
going
then
the
keep
other
going
way?
in that direction. Yep.
Perfect.
There you go.
And we
And
want
you would do get it a little bit more, and then once you get a little bit more, I would do one more rotation.
Okay.
And then you have your whip.
Now, is there any sort of like, are you looking for a certain thickness or thinness on your roll?
No,
or
not
you just
really.
trying
You just want to have you want to cover this surface. This is gonna make 12 rolls. That's your width. You're gonna be cutting that into 12. So we want a good like 1.5 inches. So you probably want this to be about 18 inches wide.
Now, if you're watching at home, or you can see it, we're not very uniform right now in terms of it being a square. Is that going to be an issue down the road?
It will be at some point.
Okay.
And with practice, you would have a perfect rectangle. When you're still learning and you get to this point, sometimes I would take a knife and I would cut the scraps like this.
This is
go ahead and move it around wherever. So like down here.
This is like a topographical
See
view.
how you have a lot?
This looks like Antarctica from the top down.
There you go.
Don't want that.
If you have a lot of dough here and not as much here, this is where I would make like a straight line across, and then transfer your dough from here to up here and keep working it.
So we can cut this, or?
Yep, you can cut. There's a knife here. Just be careful,
cool.
and you can cut straight across. And
again, Panera Bread experience with this knife. Used to cut baguettes and ciabatta bread.
That's it. And then you can kind of put that up where you don't have as much dough. Exactly. Yep. Pinch it down to seal it up.
And that's not going to be an issue down the road where we
no,
kind of did like
that won't be.
A little surgery there?
No. Yep. Surgeries are fine when you're just getting started.
So we're going to keep rolling this?
Yep. You just keep rolling it out.
Okay.
Dough however you need at this point to try and create your even lines over here. Same thing like that.
Really beat this dough up.
No, you did good. There you go. Now you can just see, just by doing this, how you can get more of an exact kind of rectangle. You just pull your corners up a little bit. And you're good. Look at that. Okay? So we're going to now take a stick of butter, and our stick of butter is going to go on here. I find it's best to use a cold stick of butter, and you're just going to grate it all around, get your edges first, and then fill it in. What you find when you do cold butter is you're just going to get a good puffy rise when they're baking that way.
So we're doing...
Yeah, so just grate it. Yeah, once you have the whole stick grated, then we can kind of spread it out, make sure it's even. I always get the edges first to make sure that each cinnamon roll, especially the ones on the ends, still have a good amount of butter and cinnamon and everything.
I've never seen the cheese grater used on butter. This is a first.
Yeah, I do that for several. I found that that's just the method that works best for things like the cinnamon rolls, for our scones. Grating the cold butter has a really good effect.
It's pretty ingenious. It's an easier way to
It's an easy way to do it. Yep.
So now we got like sort
giving
of
away my secrets.
We've got like a bakery flatbread pizza looking thing there. Right.
And then I always scrape that butter off there. We want these nice and buttery. So, yep. And then you can kind of move the butter around and really even that out. Make sure it gets into the corners. And
Okay.
grab your little bits there.
Now, was this something a recipe you learned from your grandmother, or is this self-taught?
This is a self-taught one, and it's taken a lot of combining different recipes. Again, a lot of trial and error, figuring out what my favorite parts were about different types of cinnamon rolls and icings and everything else to create exactly what we do here. Then we're going to take, this is our brown sugar and cinnamon mixture. We use 1 cup of packed brown sugar,
Okay.
and then we add 4 teaspoons of cinnamon to that, and we get our mixture here. And you're just going to take that, and you're just going to, same with the butter, start with your edges to make sure it all gets covered, and you're just going to sprinkle that evenly all over.
Okay. We're using this entire bowl full?
The whole bowl,
Okay.
yep.
You never have enough
No, this is it.
brown sugar cinnamon mixture going in on these things.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the first time you've had like a guest chef in the back?
Yes,
making
it is.
anything?
Yep.
So no pressure.
And I'm
there.
good. I don't think I'm micromanaging too much, right?
No,
You're good?
right now everything looks good. We'll see
It's
once
looking good, yep.
once it gets into the
I
oven.
would say you want to get closer all the way to your
up here.
edge. Yep, get it all covered. And especially down here, because this part down here, this is going to be the gooey center that everybody
Okay.
loves.
So we'll get a little extra down
Yep,
there.
there you go.
Would you say this is one of the best-selling recipes you have going so
Absolutely,
far?
yes.
The cinnamon
We
roll?
sell out of cinnamon rolls just about every day.
Wow.
Now you're going to take the
stage?
very bottom here, yep, and you're just going to start at the corner here.
Okay.
And you're going to create like a nice tight roll, because remember this is our center that
Yep.
everybody likes. And so you can keep going with it on that
Okay.
side. And then once we've got that tightly rolled up, it goes a little bit easier, as long as we've put down enough flour, and it seems like we did. Now as you go, these are
Okay.
going to rise for a little while and expand, and they're fluffy and yummy. And you can see why we need the straight edges here,
Yeah.
because this is your bottom of the cinnamon roll.
Now, any thought of just baking that thing off as a big old stick
Now
and
how cool would
selling
that
it
be?
as a 12,
As a log?
12-inch cinnamon,
Cinnamon log?
I would eat one of those.
There you go. Once we do that, we know that we're going to be cutting 12 cinnamon rolls. So the way I do that is I take the knife
Yep.
and I start by cutting it as exactly half as you can.
Okay.
And then I cut those into halves. And then
Yep.
I know that each quarter I'm going to do into thirds to 3. So I
Okay.
make my lines, make sure they're even, and then I go ahead and I cut them.
So you score them a little bit before you start?
Yeah, I
or-
do a little bit just to make sure I've got them even. So you want to
Okay.
kind of create, do that score
So
right,
we want,
right
like,
in the
we
middle.
want one like right in the middle.
Yep, so you can get it right in the middle. Let's see.
That's probably
You probably want to start it, I'm
Okay.
going to say, right more like here.
okay.
That's probably about your half.
Okay.
Then I would do this one in half, which is going to be right about here. I'm going to have you do the thirds. And then this one goes right about here. And now you know each one you would do into 3
So we're
pieces.
cutting these in. So I've got to make two
Yep.
marks on each of these.
2 marks on each one, yep.
All right.
And now we pick these up and you just line them up. 3 rows of 4.
Middle of that thing right there.
That's it.
We got some honkers on here, so you're gonna get your money's worth with these things.
Yeah, well then we get the icing with real butter and cream cheese goes on there.
Ooh.
Beautiful.
We got 12
Yeah.
pieces ready to go. Going right into the oven.
Going right
What's the-
into our oven at
Okay.
325
325, and these are gonna cook off
for about 11 minutes.
11
I found
minutes.
is the best number. Here we go.
All right, we're ready to go right
Going
in
into
here.
the dream oven. That's what I call it. There you are. And now you're going to close the door. Grab the handle. Close it hard. Push it. And we're going to set our timer here for
Okay.
11 minutes. So while those are baking, we're going to make the icing.
All right, icing time. What's step 1 here? We've got. It looks like we've got
Powdered sugar.
Powdered sugar.
This is our flour from
We
before.
don't
We're
wanna
going to stick
put
that
that
there.
in
So we
there.
have powdered sugar,
Okay. How
which is about about 2 cups
Okay.
or so of powdered sugar.
goes right in the
We
mix.
do a stick of butter.
Break that up again.
You don't have to because it's going to go in the
Oh,
mixer.
mix,
So, and we have about a 1/4 cup of cream cheese that we're going to throw in there.
Okay. Going down in there.
I usually just do a splash of vanilla, but I would say it equals about a teaspoon. So if you would feel better measuring it out, our teaspoon's
Yep.
right over there.
I feel a lot better measuring it out.
Just See our spoons?
Make
There
sure
you
I
go.
got the teaspoon one. There we go. Now that's the other thing with baking as compared to, or you always hear about baking compared to cooking, where chefs are more, fly by the seat of their pants.
Yep.
Bakers are more, I need this much.
It's got to be exact. Actually, when I'm doing it, I am a little more. It depends on the ingredient.
Yeah.
There are certain ingredients you learn that you have to be exact. Other things you can be a little more, creative with. But anyway, our salt, I believe, is right there in that little tub. Yep. And I throw in just a decent pinch of salt in the
All right,
icing.
so we'll just grab a little.
Yep. Throw that in there. And now you can speed it up a little bit.
Whoop.
No, that's fine.
All right, we're gonna
Yep.
kick this thing up.
Get that all done.
And when do you know when this is ready to, it's done being stirred?
When it's icing consistency, I might add even like a little bit of milk or water to thin it out a little bit. But for right now, usually the butter and the cream cheese will do the job, and so I would just let that run. Might even speed it up one more.
Okay. Oh, so now we're really
Now
going.
we really let it go, yeah. See, you won't even need to add any liquid.
Yep. Look out below, this is going. Moment of truth. Woo. Smell-o-vision, I wish we had it because these things smell divine right now. They're also very hot, so I'm going to put this plate down because these only,
There you go.
the mitts only work to a certain extent.
Once it's softened, you're just going to use this to spread it all over.
Okay.
You put about that much on each one.
So just put a little dab on
Yep.
there. Very tempting not to just go straight into my mouth with this frosting. We'll put a little dab on there. These things are right out of the oven, so they're piping hot. Now I'm obviously moving at like a snail's pace, I would assume.
I fly through these.
Yeah, I was gonna say how fast do you usually
Yeah,
whip
we have to
through
do
it?
this stuff pretty fast because we've got so many different things that have to be made and sent out to the front.
Yep.
And now you're probably going to find that the ones you started with are soft enough now that you can use a spatula to start really moving it around and get the, all over the sides. There you go.
I'm borderline drooling right now. I'm trying to keep my face away from these. So we're out of the kitchen. We've got one of my cinnamon rolls lined up against one of Laura's. I think if we did like a blind taste test sort of situation, you'd be able to figure out who made which one, but I'm gonna get in here and try one of these. I had Laura by my side the entire time. We'll see how this tastes. I'm gonna get a little frosting in there. The cinnamon sugar. The cinnamon sugar in there. That's a great mixture. Great pastry. I'm a slow chewer for those of you at home. I like that a lot. It's a little crisper than cinnamon rolls I usually have. I don't like the mushy cinnamon rolls that are falling apart on you. The combination of that homemade frosting, if I can think of the word, and the cinnamon in there, phenomenal. We're gonna have to edit this now.
I think you need to take a big bite right there, right into your middle.
Big bite,
Just
right?
take
All right,
it
we'll
and
go
stuff
big
it.
bite right into the middle.
There you go. Mm-hmm. There you go.
The frosting is also like locks your mouth up. All right. Well, Laura, we've had the cinnamon roll. I had some coffee earlier. The food here, off the hook, delicious. You put so much passion, so much of your heart into the ingredients. You want this stuff to taste great, and it certainly does. Thanks for having us in here. We wish you the best of success moving forward with Oven Engines. Thanks for having us.